Hey everybody, and welcome to Aviators101. My name's Andrew, and this is our free How to Become a Student Pilot course. And to start this course off, we want to go over a couple of the basics, a lot of the questions that we as flight instructors get asked every day about learning to fly. We're going to start off this course with the first and foremost, choosing a flight school. It's a big decision and there's a lot that goes into it. So let's go over a couple of decisions. We're going to start off with the two different types of flight schools that exist in the US. The first one is Part 61, and the second one is what's known as Part 141. Now, they can accomplish the same thing. Both schools will get you a student pilot certificate, will get you a private pilot certificate, will get you onto your commercial, but they do it in very different ways. So let's talk about those different ways. The first is Part 61, and we're going to talk about the pros. Part 61 flight schools are what you normally find at just about every airport out there. Part 61 is not necessarily a flight school per se, but it's a set of regulations that tell us how we have to teach and what we have to teach. So your individual kind of private contractor flight instructor that might just happen to bum around the local airport can train under Part 61 as well. Because of this, it's the most common form of flight training you're going to find. Most flight schools in the US are Part 61 or operate under Part 61. It's how most pilots in the US actually become pilots. It's through Part 61. There's a lot of reasons for this. The instructors are certified, but the school itself is not, because you're not actually required to have a school. Like I said, it could be an individual kind of contractor who is your instructor. In addition to that, because of this, we as flight instructors have a lot of flexibility in determining how we're going to teach, what we're going to teach, and how that structure works. If you're struggling with a particular topic or subject, I, as a flight instructor, have the ability to move on to something else and come back a little bit later, or we can continue working on that subject. I have a lot of flexibility in how I teach that. Oftentimes, too, Part 61 is cheaper because it's your local airport, because it's a local small business. Oftentimes, training in these environments is a lot cheaper. At some flight schools, it can be 100%, 150% cheaper than Part 141, and we'll talk about why in just a second. So what are some of the negatives to Part 61? Well, there is no financial aid, and there's a non-academic style environment. So if you're a kind of person who thrives in a collegiate environment, you need a classroom setting, you need a very structured training environment, Part 61 sometimes isn't the best way for you to go, because there is no requirement to be super academic. Also, the big thing for most people is that there is no opportunity for financial aid. In Part 61, really, it's pay as you go, buy up front. There are some opportunities for financial aid in terms of private loans and companies that will do private loans, but usually this is pretty limited to less than a half of your flight training if needed. And oftentimes it won't cover anywhere close to the amount that you would need to have covered to get all the way through. So let's look at Part 141, shall we? Part 141 is a structured formal learning environment. The instructors and the school are FAA certified. And what this means, these two together, is that the FAA comes in, reviews a training syllabus, reviews a flight school, and says that they have the opportunity to teach under Part 141 and that they have to follow the approved lesson plans that the FAA has provided. They cannot deviate. One of the downsides to this is if you get stuck on something, you can't move forward. You have to meet the task. You have to be successful in the task before you can proceed. Usually, Part 141 flight schools offer financial aid of some kind. In fact, Part 141 flight schools can actually offer Title IV funding. So that's your Pell Grants and your federal student loans, if able. And this is because they are commonly associated with colleges and universities, and that's my fault for messing the slide up. But the other nice thing about them is Part 141 training can reduce restricted ATP minimum. So if you're going to an airline, if your goal is to become an airline pilot, training under Part 141 actually gives you the opportunity to have a lower minimum time to get there, depending on the school you go to. It can save you 2 to 3 months of working in the industry as a pilot, flight instructor, or commercial pilot. Usually it can save you about 2 to 3 months and get you to an airline a little bit sooner. But there are some downsides. Like I said, it's commonly associated with colleges and universities. So if you're going to a Part 141 academy, a flight academy, oftentimes you are also required to be enrolled in a degree program. For some people, you don't want to enroll in a degree program, and oftentimes, if you are seeking a degree, you don't want a degree in aviation. There's a lot of reasons why, as a pilot, you don't want that. If you know anything about the industry, having a second skill is always a really, really good thing to have. Often, as well, because they are associated with colleges and universities, they're far more expensive. Usually, flight training in 141 environments can get lumped into your overall tuition at a Part 141 environment. You're going to pay tuition for your degree as well as pay tuition for flight training, and that can significantly increase the cost burden on the student looking to become a pilot. They also, like I said, have that rigid FAA mandated training outline. There is no flexibility in how they teach. They will teach and must teach in the order and how the FAA prescribes that they teach specific items. If you learn in a different way, this can be challenging if you're not very adaptive to different learning environments. Also, because they're usually associated with colleges and universities, they are a lot less common, have fewer locations to choose from, and oftentimes require that you travel or get room and board locally to attend. So just a quick summary here of some of the benefits and cons. Both Part 141 and Part 61 have FAA certified instructors. Usually speaking, there's more Part 61 locations than Part 141. Part 61 is a little bit more flexible. Price is usually a little cheaper in a Part 61 environment, and financially is often available to you at a Part 141 environment and not a Part 61. So, what does this actually tell us? Well, the benefits to being a student pilot at a Part 141 Academy usually come when you are a student looking to go to college, or you need your first degree, or you want to get a degree in aviation. Those are usually the people who benefit the most from a Part 141 environment. Thinking about the reduced restricted ATP minimums, which is usually what people go for, it saves you 3 months, but the costs are significantly higher most times for a Part 141 environment. The school I teach at, you can go all the way from your private pilot to your commercial multi-pilot, your commercial multi-engine pilot certificate for as little as $45,000. Add in a degree alone, that's usually the cost of tuition for a degree, plus flight training. So your cost burden at a Part 141 flight school can go up significantly. Now, the kind of school isn't the only thing you have to be concerned with. There are other factors. So make sure you keep watching this course, because in future videos we're going to talk about what those other factors are.